Have you ever wished you could have all the wisdom in the world? Imagine being able to solve every problem, answer every difficult question, and make the right decision every time. The story of Solomon is about a man who came closer to that than anyone else. He was blessed with extraordinary wisdom, unimaginable wealth, and worldwide fame. Yet his life also teaches a heartbreaking lesson: even the wisest person can lose their way if they stop listening to God. This is the emotional story of Solomon, the king who had everything but discovered that nothing matters more than a faithful heart. Long ago, in the nation of Israel, there lived a great king named David. David loved God and led Israel through many victories. But as he grew old, the time came for his son Solomon to take the throne. Solomon was young. He had watched his father lead a nation, fight battles, and make difficult decisions. Now all those responsibilities rested on his shoulders. Imagine being asked to lead an entire country while still feeling unsure of yourself. The people expected answers. The leaders expected direction. The nation expected strength. Solomon knew he could not do it alone. One night, something extraordinary happened. God appeared to Solomon in a dream and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Think about that for a moment. Anything. Riches. Power. Long life. Victory over enemies. Anything. Most people would immediately think about what would make their own lives easier. But Solomon's answer revealed the kind of heart he had at that moment. He said, "Lord, I am young and inexperienced. Give me wisdom so I can lead your people and know the difference between right and wrong." God was pleased. Solomon had not asked for riches or fame. He had asked for wisdom. Because of this humble request, God promised to give Solomon unmatched wisdom. But God also promised something more. He would give him wealth, honor, and influence unlike any king before him. At that moment, Solomon's journey as the wisest king in history began. God kept his promise. Soon Solomon's wisdom became known throughout Israel and beyond. One day, two women came before the king carrying a painful dispute. Both women claimed to be the mother of the same baby. There were no witnesses, no evidence, and no way to know who was telling the truth. The courtroom waited in silence. Then Solomon made a shocking statement. "Bring me a sword. Divide the child in two and give half to each woman." Everyone was stunned. One woman agreed. But the other immediately cried out, "No. Please give the baby to her. Just don't hurt him." At that moment Solomon knew exactly who the real mother was. A true mother would rather lose her child than see him harmed. The baby was given to the woman whose love revealed the truth. News of Solomon's wisdom spread everywhere. People were amazed. They knew God had given their king extraordinary understanding. As the years passed, Israel entered a golden age. The nation became wealthy and powerful. Trade flourished. The people enjoyed peace. Neighboring kingdoms respected Solomon. One of Solomon's greatest achievements was building the temple in Jerusalem. His father David had dreamed of building a house dedicated to God, but the task was given to Solomon. The project took years. Thousands of workers contributed. The finest materials were gathered. When it was finally completed, the temple stood as one of the most magnificent buildings of its time. The day it was dedicated was emotional. The people gathered together. Prayers were offered. Songs of worship filled the air. Solomon stood before the nation and prayed that God would always hear the prayers of his people. It was one of the greatest moments of his life. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. The kingdom grew richer. The cities became stronger. The people lived in security. Solomon wrote wise sayings and teachings that continue to inspire people today. His wisdom became legendary. Soon travelers from distant lands came just to hear him speak. Among them was the Queen of Sheba. She had heard stories about Solomon's wisdom but found them difficult to believe. Could anyone really be that wise? Could any kingdom really be that prosperous? She traveled a great distance to find out for herself. When she arrived, she asked Solomon difficult questions. Question after question. Challenge after challenge. Solomon answered them all. Nothing was too difficult for him. The queen was amazed. She looked at his kingdom. She saw his servants. She saw his wealth. She saw the temple. She listened to his wisdom. Then she said something remarkable. The reports I heard were true, but I was not told even half of how great your wisdom and prosperity are. At that point Solomon seemed unstoppable. He had everything. Wisdom. Power. Honor. Success. Wealth. Respect. Everything a person could desire. But sometimes the greatest danger comes not during struggle, but during success. As Solomon grew older, something began to change. Slowly. Quietly. Almost unnoticed at first. God had warned Israel's kings not to allow their hearts to be pulled away from him. But Solomon began making choices that went against God's instructions. He married many foreign wives from neighboring nations. Many of these women worshipped other gods. At first, this may not have seemed important. After all, Solomon was still wise. He was still successful. He was still powerful. But little by little, their influence affected him. His heart began drifting away from the God who had blessed him. The same man who had once humbly asked God for wisdom started relying on his own judgment. The king who had built God's temple began allowing places of worship for false gods to be built throughout the land. It was a tragic change. The wisest man alive was making foolish decisions. His knowledge remained, but his obedience faded. This is one of the saddest lessons in Solomon's story. Knowing what is right is not enough. We must also choose to do what is right. Wisdom means very little if we ignore it. God was deeply saddened by Solomon's actions. The king still had wealth. He still had influence. He still had fame. But spiritually, he was moving farther and farther away from God. Because of Solomon's unfaithfulness, God declared that the kingdom would eventually be divided after his death. The consequences would not only affect Solomon. They would affect future generations as well. The seeds of trouble had already been planted. As Solomon grew older, he had time to reflect on his life. He looked back on everything he had accomplished. He had built magnificent buildings. He had accumulated enormous wealth. He had gained worldwide fame. He had experienced pleasures and luxuries few people could even imagine. Yet something surprising happened. He realized that none of those things could truly satisfy the human heart. The things people spend their lives chasing had not brought him lasting fulfillment. The money was not enough. The fame was not enough. The achievements were not enough. Without God, they all felt empty. After experiencing everything the world could offer, Solomon arrived at a simple conclusion. The most important thing in life is to honor God and follow his ways. What a powerful lesson. Solomon started his journey with humility. He knew he needed God's help. That attitude led him to greatness. But later, success made him forget the source of his blessings. And that nearly destroyed everything. His story speaks directly to us today. Many people spend their lives pursuing success. They chase money. They chase popularity. They chase achievements. They chase recognition. None of those things are wrong by themselves. But Solomon's life reminds us that if we gain everything and lose our relationship with God, we have missed what matters most. True wisdom is not simply being intelligent. True wisdom is walking with God every day. It is choosing humility when pride tempts us. It is choosing obedience when compromise seems easier. It is remembering God not only in difficult times but also during seasons of success. The story of Solomon is inspiring because it shows what God can do through a person who seeks his wisdom. But it is also a warning because it shows how easily success can distract us from what truly matters. In the end, Solomon's greatest lesson was not found in his riches, his palace, or even his fame. It was found in the realization that a life centered on God is worth more than all the treasures of the world. And perhaps that is why Solomon's story still touches hearts thousands of years later. Because deep down, every person is searching for meaning. And Solomon, the man who had everything, discovered where true meaning is found. Not in wealth. Not in power. Not in success. But in faithfully walking with God. And that is the timeless message of the life of Solomon.